Thank you all for joining us today for the Innovation and Entrepreneurship panel. First, I want to give a special shout out to Valence for helping to sponsor the conference. We'll talk to Kobe about this, but the production on that, you would have thought that he worked Marvel because it's insane. But if you haven't already, I would definitely go check out Valence. I believe you either get an email, or you have the opportunity to sign up. An amazing network with job opportunities and to connect with other young Black professionals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. That being said, I'm Nick Tandy. I'm an MBA 2 here at Stanford GSB. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So first, we have Kobe Fuller. Kobe, if you want to come on. There we go. So Kobe has been a partner at Upfront since 2016 with a core investing focus in SaaS, marketing technology, emerging technologies, including VR and AR. And he's also a marketing genius, as you saw with that Valence video. His notable Upfront investments include Bevy, Wave, Cordial, and MetaCX. While at Upfront, Kobe also founded and incubated Valence, a platform to unlock economic opportunity, investment, and community for Black professionals. He is also on the advisory board for Pledge LA, an organization working to increase diversity and equity in tech. Prior to Upfront, he was an investor at Excel, and he helped co-found OpenView Venture Partners, which invested in Calendly, which is a $3 billion company now, and was an investor at Insight Venture Partners with early investments including ExactTarget and Oculus. He was the chief marketing officer at LA-based Revolve, one of the largest fashion e-commerce players, and Kobe graduated from Harvard College. Kobe, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Next, we have Trevor. Trevor, if you want to hop on. So, man, Trevor calling in from LA. Trev, formerly went by Skeet, is the founder of the technology startup Brud. Now, if you don't know Brud, then most of you, I'm sure, know Lil Michaela. But Brud is the next-gen entertainment and technology company that leverages cultural insights, creative minds, and boundary-pushing technologies to develop fully realized virtual characters who tell stories, champion ideas, and connect with their audiences as they entertain and inspire. So think like Disney times Marvel, but engaging with people through the channels in which we engage with today. Is that fair, Chuck?
That's beautiful. Nailed it.
All right. He's the creator of virtual pop star Michaela, or Little Michaela, a Gen Z icon with millions of fans around the world. Since its inception in LA in 2017, Brud has raised funds from venture firms Sequoia Capital, Spark Capital, SB Angel, amongst others. Previously, he was an early employee at Spotify and a recording artist and producer that played festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza. So excited to dig into some of those pivots. It's phenomenal. And then last but not least, we have the wonderful Elise Smith calling in from Chicago. Elise is the co-founder and CEO of Praxis Labs, a company changing the way organizations train, measure diversity and inclusion through immersive learning experiences in VR and actionable insights on its learning platform. Prior to co-founding Praxis, Elise invested in and coached entrepreneurs developing diversity and inclusion solutions at New Schools Venture Fund. She has also developed EdTech products and led EdTech partnerships at IBM Watson. Elise holds a BA in Geography and Social Inequality from Dartmouth College and an MBA and MA in Education from Stanford University. Inspired by her parents' fight for educational equity, Elise is dedicated to scaling access and opportunity with the goal of creating a more equitable society. How'd I do?
I need to bring you along everywhere I go. That was great. Thank you.
So it's awesome to have these three beautiful Black faces on my screen and to be able to speak to you guys today. Now, before we get into some of the prepared questions, for people to get to know you guys a little bit better, I'm going to hit you with a few rapid fire questions. Now, these are random. All right. So I'll have you guys each answer these. In elementary school, between third and fifth grade, right? What did you want to be when you grew up? Let's start with Kobe.
I want to be a basketball player. I failed at that.
All right. How about you, Trev?
Basketball player. It's still possible. I got hoop dreams.
At least also basketball player?
You know, funnily enough, no, that was not my dream. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker.
Ooh.
Wow. You and Kobe should team up because with his, production skills and your storytelling, there might be something there.
A new venture. Let's go.
So all right, we'll go in the same order. So Kobe, if you were to be a plant, what plant would you be? Random.
That's a weird question. Ought to be a plant. I don't know, an agave. I don't know. I like tequila. I don't know. That's a tough question.
Agave. Most people say ask animal, but that's too easy. So yeah, plant makes you, you have to be like, think and be like one with the earth and creative with it.
Yeah, I would be a rosemary bush. I like those things.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a hard one, Tay. Maybe aloe vera. I'm a big fan of its healing properties.
All right, cool. Yeah, that question was for you guys, so I won't answer it.
Yeah, you can answer that question.
All right, yeah, go.
I think, all right, I would either be, I'll probably be a Venus flytrap, just in case it's kind of like they have this protecting function, and they're also carnivores. So, well, not really, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah. So that's it for the rapid fire questions. I want to start with career journey. Now, before we dig into that, it's just helpful to understand, and we'll start in reverse order. Who were your influences, both people you looked up to aspirationally and then mentors? At least if you want to start.
Yeah. Really for me, my parents they have inspired my whole career journey, and kind of hearing about the experiences they had trying to fight for educational equity in Chicago. My mom integrated a white school on Chicago's east side. My dad went to one of the best Black high schools in the city, but used a family friend's address to enroll. And so this idea that your zip code, your race, your class could determine your outcomes was just something that has been instilled in me since the beginning. But in terms of mentors and throughout my career, I feel like I really grew up in the education industry. And so a lot of folks who are looking at education reform, who are trying to think about what's best for kids, are the folks who really inspired me and helped mentor me around how do you think about changing outcomes for folks.
It's amazing. Trev, how about you?
My mother, I grew up with a single mother in kind of smaller town Midwest, and watch her against all odds change the world, which is amazing. Malcolm X was really important to me as a young person. I definitely remember my teachers' faces being in an all-white school in 5th grade, reading the autobiography and then being like, this is maybe above what, anyways. And I think, as far as mentors, I've been lucky. There was a gentleman named Anthony Batt here in Los Angeles who kind of brought me in when he was running a startup and I was making music, and kind of showed me some of the ropes, and kind of just more than anything else, preach a mantra of new levels, new devils. No matter what you're doing, I think life is about getting comfortable with those devils, and the grass is always greener, but it's kind of about picking your battles and pushing as hard as you can.
That's that's very true. The new levels, new devils, and being comfortable with that. I got to take that with me. Kobe, how about you?
Yeah, pretty consistent answer, it seems, around the table. So my parents, they really just instilled a work ethic and discipline that I wouldn't have gotten or had in my life right now. So that was really, something very thankful that they had me kind of focus early on in my life, whether it be schools or athletics. And the next thing I'd say is coaches along the way in terms of athletic coaches. So I was a track runner. So I failed at basketball. Part of the thing is I wasn't enough skill on the court, but I had a lot of heart and a lot of speed. That's a good dynamic for track. And coaches really helped me just understand that what you put into life is what you get out of it. So I wasn't going to be able to win the race if I didn't put the time on the track and the weight room to really go out and be able to win when it really counted the most. And I'd say fast forward to today in my professional career, I'd say partners I had along the way at various venture firms helped really shape my thinking with regards to the types of deals I should be investing in, the limits that I have or potentially don't have in terms of entrepreneurs and outcomes that you could actually achieve. And then most recently, folks like Jim Lowry, as I think about what I'm doing and efforts I'm applying on the D&I front, Jim, if people are not familiar with him, was the first Black consultant hired by McKinsey in 1968 and dedicated his life to trying to create economic opportunity for the Black community. As I've seen everything he's done, it really inspires me to try to do my part and be what he calls a change agent in this world. So those are probably some of the, various influences I've had over my life.
There was two things that stuck out that you just shared. One is about being really fast and then strong on the basketball court. Usually when you play with those types of players, it's destructive for everybody else. So hopefully there's some finesse there if you're still playing basketball. And I'm speaking because I'm a football player, so I guess the same shade. But then the second thing is we also share in that mentor is Jim Lowry, who I actually initially got connected to you through him, who is amazing. If you don't know him, you should definitely look him up. Can each of you share a bit about the thought process, like kind of describe your career path and the thought process behind the decisions you made along those career paths? And in particular, if there was any 1 to 2 integral decisions that you think fundamentally changed your career trajectory, Trev and at least for you guys as entrepreneurs, and then also Kobe as you both an entrepreneur and venture capitalist.
I've got a strange journey. I made music. I was kind of a web dev who ended up making music for a very long time and kind of got back into technology and ended up running my own startup. But I think pretty early on, I recognized that I had a lot of curiosities and there was a real culture of specialize. And I just said, I'm not going to be happy if I kind of live in one lane. So I'm going to try and do everything, even if it means less upside on the financial side. It's going to make me more fulfilled as a human being. I think that played out pretty nicely. And then I'm able to kind of exist as this full stack employee. I can do the marketing, I can write the code, I can ideate, I can do all the things because I made it a point to learn all the things. And so whereas most people learn not to be a jack of all trades, I think that's been a blessing for me.
And then quick question before we go on to the other ones, Trev. So in terms of, we talked earlier with Nas about his self-education, right? Like he dropped out of middle school at 8th grade and he was like, I'm going to teach myself because this school system doesn't work for me. It seems like you kind of had a very similar approach in terms of not necessarily like dropping out of middle school, but like just teaching yourself like coding, marketing, like all as you continue to grow and evolve. What was that approach or process like?
Yeah, I grew up in a kind of a smaller town in the Midwest and had the internet, and it was this great playing field leveler, right? I could pirate software and be a graphic designer. I could, pirate some scripts and be a little hacker man. I could kind of learn or kind of figure out whatever I needed. I also am quite the introvert, and so I think the inability to ask someone for help forced me to learn things. And I'm trying to kind of get rid of that and kind of be comfortable asking people for things. But the upside there is that I kind of was forced to learn how to do things myself. And so, a lot of reading, a lot of learning, a lot of just being curious. And I think that's kind of led me my entire life. It's just, I want to know more about this thing. I'm going to get lost in it and figure out how to connect the dots to what I was doing before later.
That's awesome, man. Elise, how about you?
Yeah, I love that. I think similarly, I didn't set out on an intentional journey of if I do X, Y, Z, I'm going to end up doing A, B, C, and really instead just followed what I cared about. And I think what's been pretty neat to see is how all of the things I did, honestly, throughout my career has led to what I'm doing at Praxis Labs and what our goals are and what we're trying to do. Even in undergrad, I worked in the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity, looking at how to increase diversity of faculty and staff in a remote town in New Hampshire, while also working at the education lab, looking at how socioeconomic status affects learning and interventions to change how we are setting up school systems and learning environments. Then that interest and passion took me to IBM Watson, and where I was looking at how to use machine learning to personalize and measure learning experiences. I think one of the biggest kind of fundamental moments in my career trajectory was probably leaving IBM Watson. It was what seemed like, we had just announced the division. We had just started building these really incredible ed tech products. I got to travel around the world and was leading EdTech partnerships for the Watson platform, and ended up realizing that I didn't feel fulfilled. Like, I didn't think I was serving communities of color, Black and brown communities coming from fewer resources, and ended up taking like a 40% pay cut to work at an education nonprofit that was focused on innovation and learning. And I think if what a privilege that I was able to do that. And like I could move across the country to the Bay Area where I'd never really been, and that, I would be able to figure it out and have a network. But I think in being able to do that and taking that risk, really found a lot of the key insights around what we're doing at Praxis Labs, realizing that DEI learning needs to have a rigor and an applied learning science so it can actually be efficacious, realizing that VR is this really incredible tool for perspective taking, and measurable and practice, like you can practice in that environment. And so, I think that my career path, might seem like it was all leading up to this point, but really I was just following what was exciting to me and what I felt like was going to have a real impact.
Thank you for sharing that. I won't get into stories about me knowing at least way before all that. Kobe, how about you?
Yeah, honestly, again, very, very similar themes here, actually. For me, I just navigated my career in a way where it wasn't like I was trying to follow some script. This is where I'm going to be 15, 20 years from now. Like, that's just not the way I'm wired. The way I'm really wired is more in an agile manner with some certain guideposts, really doing what you love, being incredibly passionate about it, working incredibly hard. And if you're not growing, realize there's probably another step you need to take somewhere else. And then work around and surround yourself with people that push you hard, inspire you, and that help you be your best self. And that's done well for me. And it's also allowed me to not worry about decisions I made where people may judge me and look at me like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. For instance, when I was at OpenView midway through Fund 2, and I decided to take a risk, move from Boston to LA, and go from the world of venture capital to be CMO of a fashion company in Revolve that very few people heard about at the time. And it was, at the time, it was scary. I was in a totally different environment. I was managing a team of people that honestly didn't even want me there because half the team thought they should be the CMO, but we ended up scaling that thing from like 20 million to a couple hundred million in revenue, all bootstrapped in under 2 years. And it was taking that risk and not worrying about people look at me like, why would you leave venture capital? That helped me really build a new muscle that has formed, a lot of who I am today. Or even thinking about the risk I took when I left Excel Partners in the Bay Area, one of the top venture funds in the world, to move down to LA and join up front. And I didn't worry about people saying like, why are you leaving Silicon Valley or why are you leaving Excel? It's because I saw a new challenge, a new opportunity, a new way to actually grow and build a muscle that I wasn't actually building at Excel. And, frankly, again, it was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. So for me, it really is like, how do I continue excelling and just really enjoy who I work with and just, and try to build something meaningful that's bigger than myself in this world is kind of what wires me.
I think the common thread between each of that is that none of your paths were like super like planned out or strategic, and there was constant learning along the way, and those learnings look different, whether it be surrounding yourself with it, and part of it was surrounding yourself with the best people, and like part of it was having access to the internet and teaching him anything that sparked his interest, which has led him to truly be like a full stack entrepreneur. I want to dig into more of the entrepreneurship or the innovation journey. So for Elise and Trevor, and maybe we start, Trevor, with you. Can you guys, I know I mentioned or I described your companies a bit, but can you kind of give the pitch on your company and then describe where you started, where you are today, and what's your vision going forward?
Sure. I can kick things off. I run a company called Brud. It's a transmedia studio based out of Los Angeles. If you've seen Little Michaela, any of our virtual celebrities, you kind of know what we do. But the basic thesis is that media can be transformative. That stories have done more for our country than most policy. I was really inspired by stuff like Will and Grace, Jefferson's, these programs that have kind of shaped my reality more than other things that I've known. And so the dream for us was to say, okay, if there are emergent types of media and media that can scale the way software scales and can touch billions globally, there's an opportunity to create characters and narratives that can address global issues. And so really what we see is ourselves kind of Trojan horsing important themes of empathy and tolerance and in narratives that could outcompete Kardashian narratives or Trump narratives or whatever else is dominating our feeds. Michaela was kind of the first test there. We've got a few more characters that are coming about, and now we're really thinking about how we can, leverage crypto and kind of governance tokens to build new means of telling stories collectively. And so, yeah, that's what we've been up to. My journey, effectively, software developer, ended up in music, early at Spotify, and fell in love with lean startup, and really wanted to figure out a way to kind of integrate both of those passions, media and technology, in a way that could, try and do a lot of good really quickly.
A quick follow-up for you to what was, as you've been working on Bread for a while now. Actually, funny story. So so how I met Trev is that I had just started at this music tech company where I was overseeing like strategic investing and like chief of staff to the CEO there. And this is like month 1 or 2. And an A&R hits me and they're like, hey, like one of our artists on our roster wants to sit down with you about a new company. Typically, if an artist wants to pitch you on a company they're working on, it's usually like, for better or for worse, it's usually like not a great idea. And so I go and sit down with Trev, and he's like, I have this company. He explains it. I was like, that's really freaking cool. And he was like, but I was still like, hey, this guy's, he's an artist. And he was, man, I was like confused. And then he was like, and we've raised money from Sequoia. I was like, wait, hold on. Like, I'm like, did he really do this? Or is he just like playing with me? I thought I was being like played. And I dig in, I'm like, wow, this is legit. And had I not just started at Cobalt, like it could have been like a different situation. If you would have pitched me here while I was at Stanford, maybe I wouldn't be at Stanford. But I
was LinkedIn lurking and got to use my perk as being an artist with Cobalt to kind of get in and try to steal him away. But he was entrenched, couldn't do it. Maybe next time.
Yeah, I know better now. These entrenched in these systems, definitely more risk taking. So curious, what were the biggest difficulties you faced as an entrepreneur throughout the course of working with Bread, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, there are so many. The fun thing and the really difficult thing about being an entrepreneur is that it doesn't get easier. You just kind of level up, and like the game gets harder. I would say the stuff that's probably most helpful for people listening is like the fundraising piece. I heard literally 60 no's before I heard a yeah, and that yeah came via one of Kobe's partners at Upfront, Karen Nortman. I basically was like fed up, and I was kind of doing my best Stanford GSB impression. Like, hey, pitching, and just kind of was fed up and was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to come in and just be me. And here's what I want to do. And I want to tear the world apart. And I want to do this. And I think we have an opportunity to do this. And Kara, I think, saw in me this thing that was like uniquely Los Angeles, and that it was tech, it was media. I was probably the one person that could see this thing through and connected some dots. And I kind of found my tribe of investors and was able to kind of to put together around. But literally, it was like, I'm going to pitch once, twice, and whatever doesn't happen, then like I got to figure something out because I burned through my savings. And I think it's probably resonates with a lot of Black folks. Is like there isn't much to fall back on. Like I basically YOLO'd any savings I have into this thing, and if it didn't work, it was back to square one. And I'm mom's retirement plan. I am just like all those things. And so that's definitely the hardest part. Is kind of betting it all when you don't have much to fall back on.
Man, do you the last point you just ended on, we're going to actually talk about in a second after we get through this, but I want to come back to that point about not having a safety net and how that then impacts Black entrepreneurs. Elise, how about you? Can you give the pitch on Praxis and then describe where you started, where you are now, what's your vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So run Praxis Labs with my co-founder, Heather. And at Praxis, we're completely focused on trying to make workplaces more equitable and inclusive. We use perspective-taking learning experiences in virtual reality and mixed reality, where we actually let learners or employees who are our learners go through workplace scenarios where they're taking on perspectives and experiencing incidents of bias or discrimination themselves or as bystanders or someone complicit in that incident. We give them opportunities to practice responding, intervening in the moment. And we pair our immersive learning experiences with learning and reflection on our platform and provide feedback and actionable insights to learners and to our client partners. We just announced our Pivotal Experiences, which is our flagship learning journey that is 6 months or 12 months. We have partners like Google, Target, Uber, eBay, huge companies and thousands of learners on the kind of onboarding on the platform after this launch. And so it's a super exciting time for the company, and we're bringing on more folks. And so there's open roles that we're hiring for. And we also just announced our seed round, which is we have an amazing, diverse group of funders who are supporting us along the way. But I will say that makes it seem like it's super easy. And I will say it is not. And we started super scrappy. I think even just seeing myself as an entrepreneur, I think I am incredibly lucky that New Schools Venture Fund, where I work, the portfolio I was a part of and finding funding and coaching entrepreneurs with was predominantly Black and brown entrepreneurs. They were solving diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges. And so I think if I hadn't been there, I'm not even sure I would have been like, I can be an entrepreneur. But being able to see that portfolio do their thing and like raise money, and even if it was philanthropic funds, just seeing their struggle, I was like, oh, I could do that. I could be that practitioner and not just the funder. I think, we started, Heather was getting her master's of electrical engineering. I was in the MBA, master's in education program at Stanford. And I think that makes it seem like, you're going to get that check, you're going to run. But I think I was really afraid of taking capital. It was extremely scary. There was a lot of pressure and it felt like a huge risk. And so for us, we were incredibly scrappy. Like we were taping on 360 cameras on our heads. And we instead of creating like a VR experience, we had like cartoon flip books we were going to like client calls with, like really incredibly scrappy, like going to pitch competitions that were like, there's no prize. And we were like, oh shoot, why did we didn't realize that before we joined. Really trying to get every 1K or 3K pitch competition. And I think through that, we learned a ton and actually allowed us to get to where we are even stronger because we had to be resourceful. We had to figure things out. And so it's been a real journey. Yeah.
Man, that's it was amazing to watch because I've known Elise for like probably 10 years now, but to watch her walk around Stanford in her black boots and like her black skirt and just like be, unapologetically black and like doing the entrepreneurial journey. It's been amazing to see. And also you're working on something that was I know like definitely important, and then it caught this moment in time, this wave, which helped propel a lot of interest from these large companies that should have been interested in it before, but they really opened their eyes. And during that time, and this is a good pivot into Kobe to you, is during that time, or a little bit before that, Kobe, you had started to incubate Valence, which when you wrote out the marketing, I thought it was a Marvel film, which is how it should be. That's how you should present Black people. And so Valence, I think, over the last year, also like as a part of the country and the world opening their eyes, was able to scale on that opportunity. But you incubated Valence, a social network for Black professionals at Upfront, which launched in 2019. The network saw a lot of interest and traction last year. What was your vision for it, and what is your vision for the network going forward?
Yeah, first of all, Lisa and Trevor working on, it's amazing. Like for the least, like that's for me is the future of education and learning. It's going to be through VR, and Trev's working on the future of entertainment. So I just gotta give them kudos because it's amazing to see them trailblazing here. And on Valence, honestly, like my day job as an investor, I don't have time to start companies. And it was one of those things where I was just sitting in my office and frustrated by hearing people say there's this not amazing Black talent out there and that there's this pipeline problem. And maybe the tactics they went about trying to source talent was ask their one random Black friend, like, who do you know? And contrary to popular belief, we all don't know one another. And I really was just thinking about what can I do to actually solve the problem and do it in a way where I'm not telling people just try harder, which many people have said that. And for me, it was like, I just need to figure out how do I present a solution? Because if I'm not presenting a solution, then I'm not doing anything to try to progress things forward. And for me, it all was rooted in leveraging technology, which is what many people do to actually solve big problems. And I realized part of the issue was access and transparency around the network. And for me, it was one where if I just created an interactive database of talent, then people wouldn't have an excuse around where is there an amazing Black engineer, a Black marketer, or a Black founder. And part of what I wanted to do was create create a storytelling element around it. Because I just didn't want to actually present the community in a sterile manner. I wanted to celebrate the community through its aspirational superheroes. And the superhero concept actually came out of a meeting that Paul Judge and I had many years ago in the past, where prior to, so he was pitching, raising money for a company called Luma. I was at Excel. We did not research each other prior to the meeting. So we were expecting the other person to walk in the room to not look like us. And then once we kind of, we had the meeting, kind of like look at each other, wow, you're black. And eventually, we ended up investing in Luma at Excel. And then afterwards, we were reflecting on that moment, and he said it was kind of like X-Men, where you feel like you're the only mutant. And then you realize, oh, wow, there's all these other mutants out there, and they all have these superpowers. And I thought, why don't I just create a platform kind of like Cerebro, where we can actually celebrate everyone in this community as if they're these amazing superheroes. And that's why I was really intentional around finding the actual best creative, the best people that actually could follow through that vision. So I found a guy named Kwaku Alston, who was photographed everyone you can think of, from the Obamas to LeBron James. And coincidentally around that time, he just doing a shoot for Entertainment Weekly for the Black Panther movie. And I thought, this is my guy. So I stalked him and got him. And then I really wanted to make the announcement like a superhero premiere, because I didn't want to be a sterile website, because I wouldn't do our community justice. I wanted to really be like, wow, this is something amazing I want to be a part of, and it's an experience. And, luckily I didn't screw it up. And fast forward to where we are right now, it really is a platform where I was able to recruit a CEO who's amazing called Guy Primus, who I've known for years. We bonded with the fact that we're one of the only few black professionals at the time in VR. I'm glad that's changing clearly right now. And I realized, once I thought this idea, I need to bring Guy on board to actually run this, because he's very mission driven with regards to how he managed his career. I knew this is something he identified with. And right now we have roughly 15,000 black professionals on the platform. It's still, honestly, I consider it an alpha, because once you go to the platform, we haven't really kind of created clear product around what you can do when you actually get there. You have to kind of self-organize and find each other and figure out what you actually can do in terms of just building with each other in the community. But the future of what Valence will be is a platform that helps you deconstruct your pathway and do it through leveraging data and the community. So we're going to be able to recommend who should you connect with to help you get to that next level in your journey, or help someone along their journey. What content should you be exposed to, so that you realize, I need to understand this to either get to this next milestone as a founder, get to this next moment in my journey as a salesperson, or you can do kind of the other kind of analogies. And then what events should you go to again, maximize the serendipity of encounters that you may actually achieve in terms of trying to actually navigate your career. And the goal is that if we're able to accomplish that this creates a new just era and just generation of black wealth, black billionaires and millionaires, and we change the narrative around what it is to be a black professional in today's society. And that's my vision for what Valence can do. And we have a long ways to go, but I at least feel very fortunate enough that we have this little seed concept that hopefully gives us permission to accomplish at least a part of that.
Man, Kobe, that's amazing. And there's a short story while I was in undergrad that's going to tie into the next section that we're going to talk about. But me and a partner, while I was playing football at Cornell, we were frustrated at the fact that it was so hard to be able to navigate our careers, and we had no, essentially what you're trying to solve for is we didn't have that context. So we raised some angel money. We started to build. We took, if you've ever played NCAA, the football game, and you have a recruiting board where it gives you all the stats and everything, took that concept. We're like, this would be amazing if there's something easy for us as students to have to be able to recruit, where, all right, I want to work here. These are the alumni you should connect with. This is what connects you guys. This is the information you need to read, and just help you with your career development, because oftentimes you don't have that family history that you can rely on. It's connect with this guy, connect with this guy. So building that infrastructure out is awesome. And it weaves nicely into something so Michael Siebel, the CEO of Y Combinator, spoke to in one of our classes, and he said that, and this is addressing diversity in tech, you can't address the inequality in tech without understanding and addressing the inequality in society. Not only is there a lack of generational wealth, meaning there's no safety net, which prevents Black entrepreneurs from taking that risk. But Black graduates are more likely to financially support their immediate and extended family members, which makes it not just like the risk of them, like them taking that leap, which Trevor, you talked about, but it's like, wow, like if this doesn't work out, then, I am the 401k or the pension, not just only for me, but for my parents and sometimes your siblings and extended family members. And so then that makes it a bit challenging. And I know for me in undergrad, that was on my mind. So I want to add a few other stats just for the audience. The average parental wealth for Black college graduates is $123,000 versus $1.1 million for parents of white college graduates. The median wealth of Black households is $24,000 versus 8 times that for white households. And Black college grads own homes at a lower rate than white individuals without high school diplomas, which is a crazy stat. A significant amount of wealth creation comes from the private market investments, assets Black people traditionally have not had access to. And I know that each of you have taken actions to address this inequality or inequity. Kobe, you've done something really recently with Bevy, which I was super excited to see around creating space on the cap table such that Black investors can get into a growing company. Can you talk about that? And then, Trevor, there's some things that you have done, and at least there's some things that you're tackling to be able to speak on how you guys are kind of doing your part to shift the paradigm in tech, in the tech ecosystem.
Yeah, so you clearly outlined some of the just unfortunate and disappointing stats with regards to the wealth gap that exists in this country. And part of where I'm spending my time is really seeing how we can leverage the innovation economy to at least address part of that wealth gap. And part of that is because you said, like, wealth is being created at an unprecedented manner as you see companies going public or being acquired at like levels that make this like crazy sense. Just again, today, Coinbase, and it's awesome to see, Nas and Anthony Saleh being able to get in that journey early on and, generate some pretty significant wealth there. But that shouldn't be sort of like just an exception. It should be sort of a norm around how do we get our community on the cap tables earlier on, and how do we get our community as owners, whether they are founders or whether they're early employees, where they have equity and options that will be worth millions and millions, potentially billions in the future. So with Bevy, part of what we try to do there, one, I had an amazing founder. I'm on the board of this company who really took the moment about a year ago when we saw, the events of George Floyd and Black Lives Matters being this pervasive movement, and didn't just post a black square and put up their public statement and then go back to doing the same thing. He took it personally, and he realized that I, as a founder, CEO of a high growth tech company, can at least do part by making sure I actually am not a part of the problem and actually can do my part to be some of the solutions. A year ago this time, 0% of the company was Black, not one Black employee. Right now, we're knocking on the door to close to 20% of the company being Black. And he just didn't want to stop there. He realized that it wasn't a matter of having a diverse workforce, which would fundamentally make the company be worth more, especially being a community platform, where if our company is not reflecting the communities we serve and our customer base, like, we're just going to suck. And then secondly, he realized then if I really want to have diversity across all facets of my organization, it needs to be reflected in the cap table. So as we're looking at the Series C round, we just closed a $40 million round. I mean, it was oversubscribed. Excel led the round. We participated as upfront. And it would have been easy to just go off and just have institutional investors write most of the check and just kind of go on and continue working. But he realized, like, no, I want to bring in a material amount of this round from the Black community. And, like, can you help me? So we went to work and we assembled about 30 people on the cap table who are amazing, amazing individuals, many of which had no ability or no idea how they can get on the cap table of companies like this. One being Jim Lowry. He's always like, how do I actually invest in tech companies? I don't know, I have an idea. Like, hey, Jim, do you want to get in on this company called Bevy? He's like, whoa, this is amazing. And what happened is it's not just like a passive syndicate of investors. We had this Zoom call prior to announcing where all 30 of us were on there talking about this moment, and everyone's like, how can I help? How can I get to work? How can I make this company the most valuable company possible? And Derek has essentially created a new just element to his team, and also the ability to hire the most diverse talent possible because he has 30 people a part of his crew. So that's something where I think it's unfortunate that that's an exception in today's world, but it needs to be the norm. And our goal is that hopefully other people follow suit, and this just becomes the common way in which you actually do rounds like this. And that's just one of the many, again, like things that I'm trying to do is just try to set new examples and do my part by leveraging Valence to be a vehicle to allow others to do it easily as well and demystify the process. Because honestly, it's not that hard.
Right. You just reminded me that there's something that we should chat about at a later time. But that's you have this network effect by bringing like a number of different investors in, and then all of a sudden you have access to talent in a way where it's like, oh, I can't find talent. And it's like, well, you don't have a network of people that know people that are Black. So Trev, how about you? I read a quote about a comment that you made about who you take money from. And I'm curious to know how you're thinking about everything and some of the things that you've done.
Yeah, that probably speaks to like heading into our Series A. We had posted some numbers, and we had Sequoia do our seed, and as a result, we had a lot of competition for A. And it became clear to me there was an opportunity to apply pressure where venture funds feel the most, and that was in their pocketbooks. And so we basically said, like, we're not going to be raising money from anyone who isn't a woman or a person of color that can write a check and lead an investment. Because oftentimes these firms have like partners that can't actually write the check themselves. And as a result, big institutional funds that couldn't pass that test, 6-8 months later, all of a sudden had a woman or a Black person sitting on that in that partnership committee, investment committee. And so that was important to us. I think, beyond that, what I tried to do in every single one of those conversations was talk about what it means to be a Black founder and speak to the wealth inequality part and then the safety net part, but also to like the intergenerational trauma part. A lot of my fellow founders aren't talking their aunts through mental health crises while trying to, run a business. And I think that kind of stuff is the kind of personal stuff people don't speak up about, but is a really huge part of this journey. And so, I'm encouraging, venture funds to differentiate by offering things like mental health care support or, childcare or all of these things that would make it easier for better founders to come forward and contribute.
Man, you dropped a few gems there. That's so true. And it's something that it's hard for people to be able to relate to unless they're like actually spend a day or a week with you. And they're like, wow, like this is not something that I have to carry on my shoulders.
I mean, my favorite shit is like founders at these retreats being like, man, we're running a startup, the hardest thing ever, right? Just the hardest. And you're kind of totally, man. Like I wish my insurance startup was the hardest thing I had to deal with. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. That really resonates with me, Trevor. I think about that often where, the past couple of months have been pretty hard personally in my family and trying to figure out how to deal with that and navigate that.
At least it's interesting because you're like actually addressing this. Oh, Elise dropped off. All right. Well, we lost Elise. I know she'll be. There we go.
Hey. Wouldn't be 2021 without that happening.
Right?
Kobe's over there. He's like, this wouldn't have happened on Bevy. Anyways, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what Trevor said really resonated with me. I think about the past couple of months have been really hard for my family. And it's like I'm running this company on top of like all these other things that seemingly in this life and family are the most, like family's the most important to me. And it's like, how do you even balance that time? So I hear that. I think the way we think about our work and how we can kind of change the stats you shared earlier, Tandy. I mean, so much of what we do is around helping every employee and particularly leaders think about how they can create more equitable systems and structures, policies, practices, products, and services that actually have outcomes that serve us all in the way we need to. But I think as a team and as a company, what's super important to us is not just building a team that is super Black and brown and diverse, which we are, but it's like, what is that layer deeper, right? Like what are the non-visible types of diversity? So socioeconomic status, where you went to college, maybe you didn't go to college. And how do we think about bringing more folks into what we believe will be an incredibly profitable company and build wealth that way, right? And I think Kobe mentioned this earlier, this idea around a lot of those tech startups that IPO'd, previously, like they didn't have any people of color, let alone people who didn't go to Ivy League or elite institutions, making money off of that. And so we want to change that narrative. And I think, Trevor, you kind of spoke to this too, around not only is it getting that diverse team in, but then realizing that you can't reproduce white supremacist policies and values. You have to work and operate differently to support a diverse workforce. You can't, like urgency being this value of white supremacy, you know, right now when we're living in a day where Black people are getting killed just for living and existing, like we need to give ourselves space and grace. And I think that is the type of organization we're trying to build at Praxis, and we're trying to show can still be profitable, and actually will be more profitable because of it.
Man, that's so true, and it's interesting. You have a mix of different people in the audience, from people with traditional business backgrounds, tech, venture, to the creative communities, and something that you guys were just talking about. But and Trevor, I'm sure you can relate to this. But like when you think of entrepreneur and relating them to artists, it's like the artist has a lot on their plate, and like if you're a manager, it's like, well, you need a therapist, like you need all these different things in order to keep them well rounded. It's very similar. Like you need similar infrastructure as an entrepreneur, especially as a Black entrepreneur. And I hope that changes. And I know that it will with people like Kobe in the industry. I'm going to end on this, and we're going to go to Q&A. It's around their personal mission statement. And so the sweetest feeling, and I know a lot of people are thinking about this. It's like, what's my passion? Like, what do I want to go after? The sweetest feeling is when you can make an impact while working on your passion. One way to ensure that is the case is to develop a personal mission statement. So I want to ask each of you guys, what is your personal mission statement, and how does that align with the work that you're doing?
I'm not sure I have a mission statement as much as a mantra, and that's survival pending revolution. Bar that from the Panthers, I think we live inside of a system that's hard for us individually to kind of like push up against. But if you can create means of existing and hopefully thriving while simultaneously like pushing for that kind of revolution, you're fighting the good fight. And so that's kind of what I wake up every day and try to do.
Yeah, I can jump in. I don't know if I have like a personal mission statement as well, but the few things that at least guide me in my life in terms of areas I'm focusing on. One, I want to be one of the best investors in the world. Two, I want to build something that's bigger than myself. And then three, I want to be a rock for my family and inspiration to my two boys who are now 5 and 3. And some of those things are kind of, again, like with time constraints and all that kind of stuff, they kind of conflict. But if I don't focus on those 3 areas, then I'm probably not doing what I should be doing.
Yeah, I also clearly need to write my personal mission statement, but I would say I try to live my life in the service of others. And more recently have added to that by thinking about how I can use the power, privilege, and access I have to help others who don't have that access and opportunity. And I think I've been thinking a lot more about liberation and what that means for all of us and how we can get there.
Thank you guys for answering that. I'm going to shift to Q&A. The chat's been blowing up. People, I'm getting messages that they've loved the session. One person said that this is their favorite session thus far. So I'll tell Naz and Anthony that. It speaks to you guys. So one second. There we go. So the first question is Asker is Serapin Human. Where will your future growth come from? And I think that's just a broad, open question for, is this personal growth, or I guess you take it how it is?
Personal growth, I would say, hanging out with smart folks, other people on this call, and trying to challenge myself, every day in personal and professional life. On the professional side, as an organization, as I mentioned earlier, we're really exploring opportunities around cryptocurrency. I've been kind of deep in that world for a very long time, and DAOs and decentralized organizations. And I think one thing I wanted to highlight as a part of those things is the opportunity for folks to participate in the upside of organizations and capture some of that value that otherwise would be private, accredited investor land. And so if people are curious, feel free to ping me on Twitter or whatever else. A gentleman named Stephen McKee, who's at Handshake, has a really great, Black crypto financial empowerment thread that we all kind of chime in on and try to make sure people are prepared for Web3, and that we can hopefully, create the future and the technology that we want to see to pass in like the next Web3 or spatial computing environments.
Actually, that's awesome, because now you're touching on some of the stuff that's going to be discussed on the Frontier Tech panel. You should have been on that one as well. To be honest, so yeah, you guys, for like Trevor said, you should definitely reach out to him about that. But how can you expand more on kind of like Web3, how you think about it, what it means for Brud, what it means for just companies now? Yeah, and I'll be mindful of time. I think, to be short, you've seen non-fungible tokens, NFTs, kind of disrupt the individual creator value chain. All of this value is being captured by platforms, is now being passed directly from bidder to creative. I think decentralized autonomous organizations, really kind of like companies on chain, are going to have the same disruptive force for a traditional media organization. And what that's going to enable is for employees and contributors to be a bit more agile in their life, but also to have more agility in the liquidity, right? Usually as an employee, all this liquidity is locked up in options that may or may not come to pass. Because there are these liquid decentralized markets for a lot of these governance tokens that are used to kind of like, it's kind of reflect a cap table. Employees can get in and out of positions quickly. And I think that enables Black folks to say, like, look, I'll come in and bet a chunk of my comp on this token if I know in 6 months I can get in and out to take care of my mom's medical bills, and then get back in when I'm in a better position. And then I think beyond that, having kind of more agile work forces in general is compelling to people like myself who are deeply curious and want to work on lots of things. And that to me is largely like the spirit I find in like Black folks who want to do so much, be pro basketball players, documentary filmmakers, run companies. It's all possible in a decentralized Web3 future. That was amazing. The Elise and Kobe, how about you guys want to take a shot at the question? Where does your future growth come from?
Yeah, growth for Praxis Labs is getting the enterprise-wide expansions with all of our partners, getting new partners, and reaching other industries like healthcare and education. Really having those equitable outcomes there. Personal growth, this could be a whole session where I'm trying to grow personally, but I think really it's just trying to lean into realizing that happiness is nuanced, and how do you find that for yourself? So true. Kobe, how about you?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, and I'll just answer it more on personal growth. Probably hanging out with more with people on this panel here. I mean, hearing all the amazing things that you both talk about in terms of what you're working on. And then Trev, like half of what you said, I have no idea what it meant. So I think you and I need to like hang out, grab a coffee or a drink, and you just like lay it down for me. Like where's Web 3.0 going? Because my job is to invest in cutting edge technology. So, but honestly, it really is being able to spend time with the most talented, smartest individuals, and then be inspired by them, and then challenge myself to grow and hopefully be on their levels.
Before I go to the next question, I want to share a comment. So Tamer Nesbitt says, it's incredible to hear y'all talking about pursuing your passions, especially when so many of us come from places where we feel like we have to do the sure thing versus what we love. And a lot of what we're talking about is basically making it such that you can follow your passion. So I figured I'd share that. The next question is, how do you prepare for a seat at the cap table? Kobe, you want to start?
Prepare for a seat at the cap table?
I think if I were to interpret the question, I think it's like, how do individuals who are like, for example, unaccredited investors prepare to be like better like angel investors and like understand, you know what I'm saying? I think
I think part of it is just like one, understanding like your personal risk and how much capital you have to really work with and invest. And there's so many different stages if you're given the permission and access to invest in one of these companies, and just understand like where do you want to deploy your capital, create a strategy around sort of like the type of companies you want to invest in, so you start accumulating like a portfolio, and then from there be consistent with regards to how you are deploying those assets, because the worst that you can do is start to shooting shots into random places and you're not being consistent with the way you're deploying capital, or investing money that you shouldn't be investing because you really don't have the ability to take the risk with the assets that you have. So it really is just diagnosing where you're currently at and then being smart around how you're deploying it.
So I think what I hear is that there's going to be an angel investing 101 video coming on Valence that's super high production for everybody to watch before they start to invest and get on more cap tables. That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, watch you guys. Trev and at least you guys were nodding. Did you want to jump in on that, or?
That was great. I think if you want to participate in the kind of like larger ecosystem as well, just figure out where you're differentiated and how you can help. Just dive in, get your hands dirty, because people talk and people are helpful. They want, they spread the word.
I'd say the one thing as well is like take it slow. I've seen some people that like they accumulate some capital and they're like, oh, I'm gonna start investing. This VC stuff easy, and then they start investing in like the dumbest thing ever, because at that point like, everything's like a shiny object. Like just start looking at stuff and start like talking to other investors, seeing what they do, and then just kind of create like a framework around like, okay, this is amazing. And this like sucks. If you haven't seen amazing, then you're not going to know like, okay, like I am searching for that company to be the next deal I invest in, versus your buddy comes up with some random idea. You're like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to give them like whatever the number is, and then you lose all your money. So just like take it slow before you really start getting in the game.
Yeah.
I have a question that builds on that. So for Trevor, of course, like you're a Black founder. You think about these things, at least you as well. Kobe, what do you think it will take for other founders? Like, what do you think it would take in terms of both to get them to shift their mindset, and also like creating and communicating the value proposition for founders who may not be like the founder at Bevy, in order to get them over the hump to open up their cap table to a more diverse investor base, versus being like, oh, I'm just going to let them have like, Andreessen or Sequoia upfront, just take the entire round.
It's a really good question. Partly why we chose to talk about what we did there, because easily what we've done is just like construct the round the way we did and just go back to work. But it was honestly Jim Lowry who grounded us in the moment. It's like, this is actually different. This could be a model, and let's talk about it. And like Derek and I are like, okay, let's do it, because that example we put out there hopefully inspires others to follow suit. And again, like we're still early innings with Bevy, but it was an example for people to actually look at. And ultimately, though, it just comes back to the founder. Like you really have to care about this and truly want to see change. And there's some founders that really take it seriously and want to go about doing like the hard work and realize that honestly, it's not that hard, and it's also the right thing to do. And there's some founders that like they talk like they want to do something, and then they just go back to doing the same old stuff. And then there are some founders, and there are also some investors that are still bad people. Like they literally are the problem. And I think some people think like, oh, everyone feels like we should actually be doing this and putting in the work. But no, I still hear stories, I'm sure many people do, of like just bad actions and a top tier VC coming in, putting in capital and firing all the Black employees. I heard that happened like the last like 6 months with someone. So like this stuff still happens. So I think we need to be aware of the problem, and hopefully we just see that the ones that actually try and drive change create a new movement, a new level of cultural businesses that reflect the society and the environment that we want to be in.
Man, that's very true. And at a later point, I'll chat with you guys. There's a project that I'm working on at Stanford tied to some of this. So I'll make sure to do that. But I want to be conscious of time. We're now at the end of the panels. It flew by so fast. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. The conversation was amazing. I really appreciate you guys taking out time out of your busy days as entrepreneurs and investors. People have loved this. So thank you so much, and look forward to getting out with you guys soon.